Hello, Pure Lifestyle. This is your last week. That's 6 weeks of change.
I know, we didn't do one last week, did we? Did you just put in the week 5 video?
Yeah.
Alright, cool. Yeah.
So obviously everyone's missed us.
But
But with
sure
that,
about that.
everyone are one viewer.
Yeah, maybe. We should start tagging the 3,000 people in the group to get their attention.
Yeah, that won't be annoying for everyone.
No, all this effort.
I know. All this gold content is not being consumed. We are going to start putting this in a podcast format as well, so that'll be useful for people that don't. Because I actually find, if there's a really long Facebook video, you tend not to watch it because you actually need to be on Facebook. Whereas if it's on a podcast, you can do it while you're walking or training.
Pure Lifestyle Podcast has got a ring to it, hasn't it, as well? I like it.
Yeah, that double P. So today we're going to talk about maintaining your results and overcoming plateaus.
Yeah, so the message of the course, I'm probably going to open up a can of worms there, but the message of the course is for us to teach how, for each and every person who comes on it, how to maintain and sustain their results. Now, as we constantly talk about, that's really, really difficult. And don't get me wrong, you're probably not at a point now where you're happy. You might be, but you're happy to maintain and sustain where you are. And what we'll talk about today is if you do hit a brick wall and stall with your fat loss, how to get around that. And I think more importantly, something that doesn't get talked about enough is how can you actually manage that maintenance phase of when you're giving yourself, I wouldn't say a diet break, but it kind of is, but it's kind of not as well, but just factoring in some time that allows you to get used to being stable, because there's going to be times where you need to do that.
Yeah, so let's say that you have reached your body composition goal and now you want to maintain your weight. Now, a lot of people, so there's sort of tends to be two traps people fall into. Number one is they think, oh, these are my dieting calories, that's what I have to now stay on to maintain my weight. That's not true. If you are in a deficit, on a diet in a deficit, by its very nature, that is not long term. So you're not going to be in a deficit forever. You just deficit, lose weight, and then bring your calories back up to maintenance. So once people have realised this, they're like, oh, okay, so I'll be able to eat more calories to maintain my weight. Great. But that tends to get a bit misunderstood as well because it's not as much more calories as you might think. So as we diet, we know that a few things happen and you adapt to these lower calories. That means your basal metabolic rate goes down. That's not metabolic damage. That's largely just because you are now a smaller person. So when you were 100 kilograms, it took more energy to maintain your weight at 100 kilograms than it does now that you're 80 kilograms. So that's a consideration. And that means that the calories that you need to maintain that weight are obviously going to be lower. So what tends to happen is that you only maybe need to increase your calories by about 10 to 20% from your dieting calories. That obviously depends on what your dieting calories are and how restrictive you've gone. So if you've gone for a really big deficit, you might be able to bump them up a bit more. If you're in quite a modest deficit, which most people on Pure Lifestyle will be, it's not that much more, which is, I know, can be a little bit demoralising. Oh, I thought I'd be able to eat a bit more, but that's kind of just the fact of life. So to gauge what your maintenance calories are, I would just slowly increase by about 10 to 20%, and then realise that just like with weight loss, when you're maintaining, your weight will still fluctuate. It won't just stay at 80 kilograms on the dot. You'll be 81 one day, you might be 79 another day. So you need to look at your average. So when you're trying to find your maintenance, don't just change it. Let's say I added 200 calories into your diet. Your weight on the scale will go up a little bit because you're eating a little bit more. There's a bit more food volume in. That won't be fat. That's just food volume, water, various things. That will fluctuate and then come down to sort of maintenance level. And then from there, again, you monitor and adapt. So if you're like, actually, I'm still losing weight, but I don't need to lose any more weight. Okay, maybe we should have added 300 calories in. If you're like, oh, actually, 200 calories is a little bit too much, I'm now gaining weight, maybe we needed to just add 100 calories in. So again, it's just monitoring and adapting. One thing I will say not to do is go right back to your total daily energy expenditure calculator. That is the most stupid thing you can do. You've just been tracking and collecting data on yourself for 6 weeks. That is far more accurate than going back to a random calculator that is really just giving you a number based on 2 things, which is your activity level and your weight. You're in a much better position just to monitor and adapt from where you are, so do that and do not go back to the counter.
There's so many things going around in my head to make it as easy to understand for everyone, whether that be a PT or whether that be a member of your lifestyle. So everything that you've just said, I'm going to try and kind of unpack it. So let's say, for example, at first you were given these maintenance calories and you worked out with your coach that you say sit at around 2,500 calories, and your coach has then kind of put you in about a 500 calorie deficit. You've achieved gradual weight loss across the 6 weeks, whether that be anything between 1 and 4 pounds, because every single person's different. I can't see it being much more than that, but anyway. Then you've got to a point where you've lost a significant amount of weight over the 6 weeks. You've hit a bit of a brick wall. So from a plateau point of view, would you say at that point, for the average person, I know we've talked about if you're going to drop on the other video about the period of time of a plateau before you change things, because I know you've said about 2 to 4 weeks for a female and so on. So if you've then stalled for 2 to 4 weeks, would you then advise, and I know it depends on the person, to go start to then input a few calories back in because you want to see what maintenance is like around there? Or would you start to then adjust to carry on losing weight? I know it's going to come down to depend on the person, and what we're doing here is crossing over overcoming a plateau and maintenance calories as well, so it's a bit confusing.
Yeah, I think it would completely depend. If the person still wanted to lose weight, then I would lower their calories again, or I would increase their activity, or a combination of the two. I'd put them back in the deficit. If they've plateaued, that probably means they've hit about maintenance. So if they're plateauing at 2,000 calories, that's probably about their maintenance calories. Now, what's more likely is that little things have creeped up. So they've stopped weighing things out and portion sizes have increased and they're not hitting their step count all the time anymore and they miss a few gym sessions here and there. So actually, they're not in a deficit for those reasons, or maybe they're eating slightly higher calories, because actually, for a lot of people, I think people lower their calories too quickly because they think either, it's been 1 to 2 weeks, I've not lost weight, I must need to lower my calories, or it has been 4 weeks, I haven't been consistent at all, but I still feel like I've hit a plateau, so I'm going to lower my calories. So sometimes it's just a case of being stricter again, and actually sometimes that happens when you lower your calories because you're like, oh, this is new, these are my new targets, like I'm back on track, and that's why it's working. But it might still have worked at 2,000 calories.
Yeah, you answered that question exactly how I wanted to. So in my head, the way I want you to kind of see that is, or for anyone watching who doesn't really understand it, can't get their head around calories yet, is once you stall 9 times out of 10 is because you've been on a process for so long, it becomes mundane and you'll start under-reporting. So the first thing, in my opinion, if we're going to put this in a bit of a stepped process, the first thing you should do is go, right, have I definitely been really as consistent as I have done for the previous 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks? And whether that be tracking, whether that be energy out, because what you'll find is as you lose weight and you're reducing your calories, then obviously you'll move less. Have you been as consistent there? Have you done the odd thing where the motivation changes as you lose weight, doesn't it? It's like people start to think, oh man, I'm getting somewhere. So as a result of that, then start to slack on the stuff that they were really strict with 3, 4 weeks ago. And that's fine. It's completely understandable. Like we do that as well. But I think the first step, kind of the number one in the process, is have you been kind of accurate enough with all the stuff that made you this successful along the way? What would you say the next step would be off the back of that?
Yeah, so brilliant point. Like I would probably have what I term like an audit week, where we go back to like the start week where you track everything, you're really anal about stuff, and just make sure that, like you are being strict. The other option is to maybe lower your calories. Now, so these two things might actually have the same result. So you might, let's say you're not very accurate at reporting at 2,000 calories, so you're really actually eating 2,200 calories. but then I give you 1,800 calories. So now you are actually eating 2,000 calories. The outcome is the same. And that's partly why I don't know if you saw the other week, but someone had called someone out for giving out 1,200 calorie meal plans. And I'm like, or not meal plans, like calorie goals. Mm-hmm. And you can't really say what another coach is doing. Like, you don't know why they've given them that. And in fact, I've given that to clients knowing that they never report accurately, no matter how much I've tried. And that's not failure on their part. That's just, it's really bloody hard to do. So let's say they eat out a lot. We know that often what's on the menu isn't quite what the calories are, or they want it to look as low calories as possible. So they'll put as low calories as possible in. It's normally about 10% more than that. So if they're eating out all the time, that can add up. So if I tell them, actually, your calorie goal is now 1,200, knowing that really they're going to eat 1,400, 1,500, and that's a good deficit for them, then that's fine, because I know what I'm doing. They're my client. I know how they're reacting to that, and I'm monitoring the progress. So they're not going to starve themselves because I'll be there to stop. But you're not going to starve yourself overnight eating 1,200 calories. But then another PT would look at that and be like, that's far too restrictive. You're active and you're on 1,200 calories, but you don't know why they're on that. Do you know what I mean? To just kind of like judging from the outside, that was not answering the question, but I just thought it was a tangent.
No, and do you know what? Like, I'm trying to put this, so I don't know if someone who really didn't understand this could literally have hit a brick wall and have hit a bit of a plateau and could literally write this down. Right, my step one is I need to do a really good self audit, like what I did in the first few weeks. Step two is, as a result of that, have I been accurate enough? And if I've not, then start to be more accurate and do the scales. Then, or do I start to change? Do the scales come down? Do I start to make progress again? I think step three is, if you've got them two first bits absolutely bang on, and you're still not, say, losing weight over a, say, 2 to 4 week period, it's something that I do with my clients. It's like, have a conversation. This is for PTs and for you on this weight loss journey. Like, have a conversation with yourself. Like, are you happy to not lose weight for a while, to then focus on other things like the performance-based stuff? Like, is that, now you've got that and you're eating at maintenance, is that making you feel better with your training? Like, do you feel like because you're not as strict potentially with your MyFitnessPal or so on, that it's giving you that freedom to help you manage it? And this is, I suppose, what I'm trying to say is, this is where, do you want to manage maintenance and stay here for a while, knowing that at some point, if you're going to go for this sustainable approach, like, you're going to have to understand what this feels like. So, like, I personally, what I do is kind of give them the option. Do you want to stay here for a while? Mentally, you're in the right place to go, do you know what, I'm probably going to put a pound or two on, maybe. Depending on the time of the month, I might put a little bit more on some weeks. Can I manage that mentally right now? And if I'm okay with it, then let's stay here for 2 to 4 weeks. And then we look at either reducing calories, increasing activity, whatever. So I think that would be my step 3.
I think people underestimate how impressive it is to maintain your weight. Like, the reason diets don't work is because people then put the weight back on. And actually maintaining your weight loss is a huge success in itself. So don't think that because you're not losing any more weight, like, you're not doing a good job anymore. Like, you've created these habits that can allow you to maintain your weight loss. That's really the whole point of this. That is fantastic work. So yeah, if we're looking at a sort of step-by-step thing, it would be 2 to 3 weeks consistently in a deficit, or consistently what you think is going to be in deficit. So sticking to a diet for 2 to 3 weeks. If you think you're in a plateau after that, have an audit week. Track everything. Be so anal about everything. Make sure you're hitting your step count. Make sure you're hitting your calories. Make sure you're getting to the gym the amount of times that you would allocate to going to the gym. If you're still not losing weight and you want to lose weight, then we need to say, right, you're not in a deficit over time. Fair enough, that's okay. We need to either increase your activity levels or reduce your food intake, or a combination of the two, which is what I'd probably suggest. But again, that depends on who you are. If you're an office-based worker and you're already struggling to get your 10,000 steps, but you just get it, maybe it's not realistic to be able to increase your activity levels at this time. But we maybe need to reduce your food intake. Yeah,
and then it can even boil down to kind of, and we don't touch on it a hell of a lot in this, because we do just talk about calories and energy out and so on, and increasing activity and getting in gym sessions, because at the end of the day, we work in a pure gym. So, like underestimating the fact that where they can save calories that can make a hell of a lot of difference. So like if you've really got used to, I don't know, and this is the thing for me, is like, and you posted about this, about flexible dieting, I think the other day, in regards to if you have got quite a lot of calories at the start because you've got quite a bit of weight to lose, people can fall into the trap of having still the foods that they enjoy, and then getting used to that process. And as you start cutting calories on, and then having to cut them out is really difficult. So from the start, getting really good at improving kind of food volume and getting the most out of your meals and kind of eating whole foods and stuff that's going to keep you satiated and full up and so on. Because if you're going to stay on this process for a long period of time, and obviously you'd be in a calorie deficit, stay at maintenance if you've got a good coach, but getting used to the fact that having meals with like high food volume and making you feel fuller for longer is obviously going to help you along that process. And it might just be that the stuff that you take out, like your oils and so on, and you swap them, that will be the difference in that extra few hundred calories per day, per week, that then starts to get you moving again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's such a good point, actually, because I'd come at that more as like comparing someone on a higher calorie diet, someone on a lower calorie diet. But you're absolutely right, like you will be starting on higher calories, meaning that you could still fit a Magnum in most days and lose weight. But as you reduce your calories, if you're still trying to fit that in, it impacts your day to a much greater extent, which means that your food choices for the rest of the day are hampered, and really it's not filling you up. So as you get lower and lower calories, you need to get a bit smarter about your food choices and where you're making those exceptions to have like a bit of a treat here and there, which you can still have, but you just need to accept that it's going to impact your diet as a whole in a bigger way.
Yeah. Okay. And I think to summarise it, I think my biggest tip would be, and it's something that I've overlooked over the years as a coach and even with myself when I've been trying to lose weight and so on, is like psychologically do your best to get used to having a period of maintenance, and be really self-aware at that point. It's not an opportunity, I don't feel anyway, to go, right, okay, I'm at maintenance so I can kind of eat what I want, I can stop tracking and so on, because it's probably going to hit you hard, that, and start to put a bit of weight back on. And if you're a coach, to understand that planning or factoring in maintenance phases into someone's program over time is only going to benefit that client when essentially they are away from you. So once they stop training with you, and this is what you want to train clients out of your business so they become self-sufficient and can be accountable to themselves, which is difficult, I completely understand. But maintenance or hitting maintenance and getting to a point where you're not putting on weight is like, it's not a bad thing at all. And I think some people are like, oh, my weight's stalled, I really like, it's really bad. And then that then is a trigger sometimes for people to start derailing, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest problem, because actually maintaining your weight loss is like, that is the goal. And that's what makes a successful diet. Like, if you're looking at the criteria of a successful diet, it's not to keep losing weight, it's to maintain the weight that you lost. So I think people don't celebrate maintaining weight enough. And even when a client's checking in, they're like, I didn't lose any weight this week. It's like, yeah, but you didn't put any on. And actually for the last 20 years of your life, you've been putting on weight. And now you've lost a whole bunch, and this week you didn't lose any, but you've not put any on. Like, that's a win in itself. So yeah, I think definitely appreciate what maintenance is, and that should be celebrated, and that's actually a good thing. If you're not putting the weight back on, that's a good thing.
Yeah, and then if you need any more help on regards to overcoming plateaus and so on, it's like a two-sheet PDF document that's in this week's Pure Lifestyle. If you've got that, then make sure you read up on it. If you've not got that, then watch the video from week 6 last time.
Awesome.
Brilliant.
Right. Have a lovely week.
Time again.